So here we got our little Indian Yellow Tit, and we're working at about 4 inches across. Um, your line work should print about um about that size if you print it off as instructed in the handout. But I've cut it out and taped it under my surface, which I'm using drafting film, matte double-sided .005 graphics drafting film. Um, I don't really have any other setup than that. It's just drafting film with my sheet of paper under it. So, with that being said, let's hop on in and get started. So I've got my black, which is $1.99. To take it out of my holder to see what the number is on it, because I don't know. But so $1.99 black, and let me zoom in just a smidge more. Oh, I'm working on his little head. I can just really gently move this. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right, so I'm starting with my black, and I'm just going to go in and really lightly, really sharp black. Got my black as sharp as I can. And I'm just going to start filling out the darkest part of his crest. So just really short strokes, because we don't have to do a lot here because we are working very small. Just very tiny little fluffy strokes. Show those little tiny feathers. And we're just getting the darkest parts of that, which I realize along the edge isn't really along the darkest part, but I like to do the edge in a good solid darkness to give some foundation to the lighter bits that are going to be where the light's hitting it. And that'll make a little more sense when you kind of see how we're getting things done. Scoot that a little bit. See my cute washi tape. But yeah, just work these little blacks in. Kind of define this a little bit. And then I'm gonna grab my olive green yellowish, which is 173. And I'm going to just very lightly come in and we're going to shade just to get a little bit of the tint of that. And this is about a 1 or a 2 on our pressure scale. We just want to get the hint of that color in there. Always got to think about our pressure when we're working on drafting film, because if we go too heavy, too fast, everything gets shiny. I'm going to sketch in this one. I'm actually just going to, with about the same pressure of a 1 or a 2, I'm just going to go ahead and shade in this whole top of his head. And it doesn't have to be very consistently thick. Just get that color whacked in there, and we will come back and go over it with more layers. I just gotta lay it down. Just get it in. As they say, make it exist first, make it good later. And that is what we plan to do. And that's the yellow spot, so we want to go around that. And we obviously want to go around his little eye. And that's really dark around there. But we're going to still with our soft pressure. And then while I've got this green, I'm gonna come down here and go ahead and lay out some green in here too. Just get it in there so we don't have to come back to it. That's yellow, so we want to do there. And I think that's pretty good for our green base coat. Then we want to take our Payne's Gray, and this is really going to be our highlight color in here. So look at your reference and kind of see where the lighter bits are coming through. And fill those in. And then we're going to come back in with that black and work around these light spots. So each little, I don't say feather because that's not quite right, but each little chunk of the crest has a light section. And that's kind of what we're filling in now. And because it's so small, we don't have to do much to make it stand out. Just give it a little bump. Every little one gets a little bit in there. And then down here, he's got some highlights. Those feathers are shimmery. And we're still using very light pressure, maybe a 3 at this point. A little bit darker than the grain, but not very heavy at all. Just getting some texture in there, short, tiny strokes. And he's got like a little light bit behind his eye that we're going to do with Payne's Gray. And then we're going to get in there and get that eye done with our black. So it doesn't take much to get this eye done because it's so tiny. So we're just gonna get in there and draw the circle around it. Just like that. And then we need a brown for his inner eye, which we've got our Nougat 178. And we're going to fill in the pupil with that, which is I guess the iris. Is that right? The iris? Just the outer ring. Give that a little bit of touch of brown in it. I'm just filling the whole thing in and leaving a little bit for the highlight. Then I'm going to come back in with my black and go over that. Darken it up in the center. And obviously leaving out the highlight at the top. Like that. And then I'm going to take my black around the outer edge, all the way around, really gently around the outer edge. Just giving him a little tiny band around his eye, just so. Perfect. Now, if you really want to get fancy, you can take your slice tool and pick out. If you look at the reference, you can see he's got like little, like, I don't know the right word, like scales around his eyes, I guess. You can pick those out and give a little bit of texture to the skin around his eyes. And you don't have to do this if you don't feel like comfortable doing it at this small size, but it definitely adds something to the piece if you do it, in my opinion. It certainly makes it look more realistic. All right, so pick your black back up. Again, that's the $1.99. And we're going to carry on with getting the rest of the face done. So we're going to start at the beak, and we're going to work our way up. I'm just going to go up the front of his face. Still light pressure, very light pressure. We want to be able to get some layers in here. You may notice I'm turning my pencil as I'm working, and that's because I'm always wanting to work on the sharpest point of my pencil to get the finest line I can. Just keep filling it in a little bit at a time. A lot of the definition in the reference photo is kind of lost in this area, so you kind of have to make it up a little bit, and that's fine. Just don't go too crazy, but you can definitely give it a little bit extra texture if you like, or I like to make my feathers all kind of triangle-y shaped, wedge shaped. That's the right way to say it, wedge shaped. That way they're at least somewhat realistic looking. As we get down here to the back of his neck, he's got some of that kind of ochre gray or ochre green greeny gold. So we want to leave space for us to get in there and get some of that greeny gold in. So don't go all the way to the edge of his neck. Make sure you follow the line work as you can. Just lay your strokes in and always go in the directions that the feathers are going, because they wrap around his head in this direction. Okay, looking good. And then from here, the feathers come out from the eye and go down into that yellow cheek. And then kind of speckled in here a little bit. You see the way I'm using my pencil right now? I'm actually doing 2 strokes back and forth. So obviously don't mark on your paper like this, but I'm doing 1 stroke that way and 1 stroke that way. So I'm going back and forth and back and forth like that. Find my eraser. But that's kind of how I do my fill strokes on a piece like this, just to really get it in there. So I'm doing that fill stroke. And just going with the curvature of the bird's head, filling it in really lightly. Not a whole lot of pressure going down. And it helps to, if you find yourself wanting to use too much pressure, it helps to hold your pencil back. Like you'll see me, I'll choke up on my pencil and then have to come back, because it's something that I struggle with as well. I've always struggled with getting too tight on my pencil. So it's something you have to always be conscious of. And even after 20 plus years of drawing, I struggle with it. It eventually, to some people, comes naturally. I am not one of those people. So if it clicks for you immediately, that's wonderful. But if it doesn't, just keep reminding yourself, one day it will click. So I'm told. All right, so then this little bit goes kind of down to there. A Oh, no, I went into the yellow. I went into the yellow. Don't do that. Don't do what I just did. Leave that little space there for the yellow. All right, you should be seeing that you're getting a good fill in now. Things are starting to look kind of normal on the head. Just keep working it, working it, working it. Go over this same places a couple of times each if you need to. Just get layers on. Layers are what give you that gorgeous depth of the pencil. And now in some places you may find you want to press a little bit harder to get some darkness on, and that's fine. It's a fine line of finding where you want to have that darkness. Like I'm pressing a little harder here at the cheek area because he looks like he's got like a little fat ruff that comes across his cheek. And I'm gonna pick that up with the yellow further down his face. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get on this yellow. I'm gonna use light yellow ochre 183. That is 183 light yellow ochre. And we're just gonna start tacking that in there. Mm. There's not really any rhyme or reason to this. Just get it in there. And the same for down here. Just get it in there and we'll work with it once we've got it in. And do pay attention to the way that the feathers fall, though. So they go down from here and then work around his face. Okay, got some yellow in there. All right, now I'm going to take my dark cadmium yellow, which is 108. Dark cad yellow 108. And we're going to kind of follow those darker spaces a little bit. And we're not pushing hard. We're still maybe a 3 on the pressure scale. I'm just kind of getting a little bit of a second color in there. Doing it just around. All right, that's not quite the right color I want, though. I think I want to use the green gold, which is 268. Green gold 268. And I'm going to really gently put some of this in because this color could be very overpowering if you're not careful. And I'm just going to gently pull that down into his cheek. where he's got that shadow that comes down. And then where else do we need it? He's got like a little ruff here. So there. And back here at the back of his head, we need it. All right, let's move back to our black. Get this front of his face. And he's got some little tufty bits here that we can just lay in. Up here by the beak. And he's got a little flash of yellow on his beak, so I'm going to use the dark cadmium yellow and just mark that out. And then I'm going to actually use the nougat for his beak. I'm not going to completely fill it. He's got a little line right at his lips, isn't the right word, right at the opening of his beak that's yellow. Like he's got a little yellow lipstick on almost. So we're going to fill that in just up to the edge of the beak. And then we're going to pull back out our dark cad yellow. And we're going to fill in that little lipsticky line. There we go. Cool. Now I'm going to take the the nougat, actually. That's what I'm going to take. And I'm going to do just a little bit of texture in here with it, in the yellow. And try and pull out some of these feathers that I want just to be able to have some definition. So this is giving some shading in the yellow. And curling it around that wing. I'm going to go back to my dark cadmium yellow, which is the 108. I'm just going to fill in again, blend all this together a little bit. Not pressing hard, just letting the pencil do the work for me. Dust that off. See how it's looking. All right, I'm going to get my black back out. We need to go darker. We need to go darker. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to amp the pressure up now. So I'm about a 5 now. I'm going to really start picking out these top little bits. Just gently go up them. And ease off the pressure as you get down here on the head. It's all about push and pull on the pressure. I'm actually pulling my strokes from here in. All right, now I'm going to go the opposite direction. All right. Now we're going to slip a piece of paper under here and see how it's looking. This is the best way to tell how you're doing. So we could use some more definition. So we're going to leave that paper under there for a minute and just work on this. We're going to bring our eye in a little bit. Give that some definition a little bit better. And also our beak could use some definition. I'm going to use my nougat. Fill his little beak out. Okay. See, just that little tiny bit gave him a different little look. I'm going to take the nougat into his actual feathers now. Blend it out. Okay, we're getting there. So now we're going to work on his little back. So I'm going to pick up my green gold and my burnt sienna. We should already have green gold out, but the burnt sienna is number, I gotta get out of my extender, 283 for burnt sienna. And with the burnt sienna, we're just gonna fill in this whole back area. So just really tiny. I'm doing circular strokes with this one just to fill. Very lightly. You don't have to go fast. Just get it in there though. Okay. Now we're going to take our green gold and we're going to go with the green gold in the directions the feathers are going. And you can even see how just doing those circular motions gave us that hint of the way the feathers lay, because it's so roughly laid down. So then we're taking the green gold and we're just gonna kind of accentuate those circular bits that we just made. And again, this is very, very light pressure. Make sure you get all the way up almost into this black if you have to make sure there's not a white space. Almost to the fun part, which is those little wings. Well, in my opinion, what the fun part is. I enjoy drawing wings. Just keep filling it out. Just a little bit at a time. I actually want this color to be a bit stronger, so I'm going to do a second layer on top. And now I'm going back to doing the circular motion because I like that texture. And for this top layer, I'm not being very particular about where I'm putting it. I'm just kind of getting it in there. Okay, let me move my reference picture up a bit. Guess while we have them out, we could do this underbelly bit too. Let's take our burnt sienna and just start pulling some of that in here. Very lightly at first. Then our green gold. About like that will do. I'm going to pick up our dark cadmium yellow and bring that down the front here. Go ahead and blend that in. All right, so then we want, what do we got? Let's do our beige red. I could have swore I had cream picked out for us. Well, let's do ivory. We're going to do our ivory, which is 103. And we're going to do these white bits on the ends of the feathers. that's a stripe of white there. And then we've got white on the wing here. Now, each of these little feathers has like a cream on the edge of it, too, which we're going to struggle to get in, but we're going to try. I think we can do it. Especially down here on this tail. So we're going to work our way down these wings from the center down, I think. So I'm going to use the nougat, which I need to sharpen. So from here, I'm going to take my, goodness, let's use our nougat. And we're going to fill in some of the darker shapes just in here that show the shadows of the feathers. And again, you're just doing little tiny strokes. You want to give the impression that a couple of these little feathers are sticking up and we're seeing the darkness under them. Now, don't go too crazy, but you just want to put a little definition in there. A little bit of darkness. Just like that. Give it just a little bit of something. And I'm not being too particular about where I'm putting them in regards as to where they are on the actual photo, because birds fluff up and their feathers get a little bit disarrayed. So you don't have to be spot on that. And for a lot of these on the edge, I'm actually taking my stroke from the bottom up and going up into the darkness just to kind of give it a little texture. So there that is. And at this point, I'm going to take my blank sheet of paper. This is just a piece of printer paper that I've got here. And I'm going to slide it up under here and hide my line work so I can have a look at what I've done. And this just gives me the ability to see it without the line work behind it and see where I need to go back and fine tune some details, like this area right here between the black and the brown. There's a little bit of a gap and I need to touch that up some. So I'm going to get my burnt sienna and I'm just going to go in there and really gently put a couple little strokes and just fill that out and blend it in. And we're actually going to take that down on into these feathers and just put a little bit of texture in there. And again, this is honestly a little more random than you would expect it to be, because it is just the multitude of feathers on that bird's back, and we're working at such a small size that the the true definition is lost. And I'm actually going to cover do a whole layer of this burnt sienna uh, on this back, and I'm just doing single strokes, and I'm going in the direction that the feathers are laying. And then once I get this in, I'm going to go in with my slice tool, and we're going to pick out, actually, we may need to get another layer or two in here before we go in with the slice. It takes a little bit extra pigment to really be effective with the slice tool. So just keep laying it in. Go all the way to your edge. And it's okay if you have little spots where you don't quite fill it all the way in. That's just going to give it natural highlights. And you can go a little bit darker in some spots, a little bit lighter in some spots. All of that is completely fine. Just go with what you see in the reference photo. Don't feel like you have to specifically copy what I'm doing. Look at your reference, and what you see is kind of what you want to draw. And I'm gonna, while I've got this burnt sienna, I'm gonna go down here because this little section on his bottom is the same. So I'm gonna match that up. Just give it a little bit of shadow. And I'm gonna pull my my white paper out real quick and just make sure, yeah, that's where his wing comes along. So I want to be darker here at the top, because that's going to be the shadow of where the wing is falling over the body. And we're just going to darken it up a little bit. Just like that. A little bit more. And then I'm going to take probably the green gold. And we're going to just do the same thing. We're going to do just a light layer of green gold. I want to get that beautiful yellowy color in there. And this one I'm using a much lighter pressure than I was with the burnt sienna. If I was using our 0 to 10 scale, the burnt sienna would have been about a 3 or a 4. This one is going to be, the green gold, the 268, is going to be about a 2. So we're trying to be very light-handed with it. And I'm doing very short pencil strokes, just blending it in, blending into this yellow especially. Right in there. Just giving it some definition. And then again, come down here to the bottom. And same thing, repeat that. We're just giving that green gold a little bit of room to breathe. Just fill it in. Just like that. Okay. Slide it down a little bit. I feel like my focus is a little bit off. Let me refocus this. Something better. I think that's a little bit better. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And I've got just a sheet of, this is Duralar, which is basically graphics drafting film. And I like to put that under my actual working drafting film to kind of give it a little bit of a cushion, because sometimes if you're working with just the plain drafting film alone on the direct paper, uh it can pick up this strange texture from the paper. I know that sounds very odd, but it's a thing that happens. So I find that if I just put another piece of drafting film or the Duralar, whatever you have down, helps keep that texture from picking up um in your smooth gradients. So whenever I put my clear or my white paper under it, I make sure I go under both of those sheets like that. So I think he's looking pretty good. So we're going to take our slice tool now. And let's see, where do we want to go with the slice tool? We're just going to take the slice tool, and we've not really used the slice tool yet. So the way I hold my slice tool is I hold it upside down. So normally when you use it, you would use it like that with the angle down. So just take it, turn it upside down so that it's diagonally going down. And we're really only working with this very tip bit. And we're not even using the slicing end, which is this top bit. We're using this bottom side of it. And we're just scraping really lightly. We're scraping the pigment off. And some people use like an X-Acto number 11 blade for this, and I wouldn't recommend doing that, because that's a very sharp, pointy blade and it can damage your paper, whereas this, because it's ceramic and it's curved, is much more gentle on the paper. But if you feel the need to do it with an X-Acto number 11, by all means, if you're comfortable with that, go for it. I just find this to be a little safer, easier to get in there and make some texture. One thing I will say is I found this on Amazon recently. It's the Amazon Basics ceramic box cutter tool. It isn't as good as the slice tool, but it works in a pinch, and it's a lot cheaper. I think this was $6 on Amazon. It's a little sharper than the actual Slice brand slice tool, so be careful when you're using it, because you can't actually cut yourself with this one. Whereas this slice tool is, it's sharp, but you can't really cut skin with it unless you really try. This one, you can cut yourself with it, so be careful. But it's the same premise. I hold it upside down, use the edge of the blade, and this scrape. One thing I will say about the Amazon one is the cut of it is wider, so when you make the marks, it leaves a wider mark. So I would say for finer detail, you would want to use the actual slice tool. Uh, if you were doing like whiskers or something, the Amazon Basics one would probably be more appropriate for that. But I'm just going all over and just picking out some little bits of feathers here and there, giving it some texture, especially up here in his crest. And you can see I'm turning how I'm holding it as the feather direction changes. You really want to make sure that we're going with it. And just we're using the lightest touch with this slice tool, like a 0.5 on our pressure scale. We're just letting it rest on the paper and pulling it. Almost no pressure at all. Just letting it gently pull that pigment away. And I'm taking quite a lot off here in his face because I'm going to go back over it with a maybe like a Payne's gray and let there be some lightness in his face. And then I'm going to come down here, pull out some little feathers. And you'll start to get all this dust on your piece. And that's where I recommend getting one of these big poofy makeup brushes. And this is just a cheap um, blush brush, I guess. And it pulls the pencil dust away very efficiently. So I've got that now done. So now I'm going to go back in with my Payne's Gray here into the face and just fill that back in. And you'll see that the paper or the surface has become a little not scratched, but I guess scratched is the best word from using the slice tool. So it will show where I've used it, and then the tooth will fill in between. And I'm using a very light touch here, like a 1 or a 2. I'm just going around, filling in around where I've scraped off, darkening it back up. And if you need to go back in again with your slice tool, didn't do it as many times as you need to, go back and forth, fill in and slice, and fill in and slice. It's something that you just have to get the feel for before you find um, the right amount that you need to do. I don't like to use the slice tool too much, but some people work magic with it. I am not super confident with it. I'm always afraid I'm going to just completely slice through my paper. But it's how we get better, we practice. So I'm just taking the Payne's Gray and I'm really going over all of this darkness that we did in black and filling in And I'll do this little bit down here at his throat. Just like that. Okay, now I'm going to take my black and I'm going to come back around. And I'm just going to pick certain little places that I want to darken in here. So like along the edge of this yellow marking, I really want to be dark. Going into that marking, I'm going to put some stray feathers. Just that. Oh, that's looking pretty good to me. The very tip of his beak is darkened. Going along with his the separation of his top beak and dark beak a little bit there, just to give it a little tiny bit of separation without getting too mussy on the that yellow line that's there. Going back in here and picking out some more feather definition. Really going quite dark in some of these places. All right, cool. So now I'm gonna go with, I almost want to use the olive green yellow and do a really light, um, just like a glaze over this, just to tint it to the greenish shade. So I'm just doing very light, letting the pencil glide over it. I'm doing circular motions as when I get the pigment on the page, and then I'll move it around with a different color. Just enough on there that you can tell there's a little bit of green in it. Put some down here too. Especially where it darkens there above the, or below the wing. It's a good place to go a little bit darker with the green. Have a nice shadow on it. Right there. Okay. Now we did a little bit of slice tool on the yellow on his face. So I think what we're gonna do is take our colors do I have pulled out? Let's take our orange glaze and we're gonna really lightly fill in, oh goodness, a buggy. We're gonna fill in really lightly, just tinting that a little tiny bit. We don't want to make it orange. We just want to put little highlights in there that give it some color variation. And then I'm going to go back to my dark cadmium yellow. And I'm going to really fill it in. And be really careful that you don't mix the yellow in with the black, because you'll get a weird green color if you do that. Be very precise about your placement. A bit in here, a little bit in there. I'm gonna put a little bit of this on the back where this yellow comes across. A little bit back here. All right. That feels like that little bit is looking good. Why don't we take our Bistra and darken this little spot up here at the front of the wing up, because we need to start working down into the wing. I'm taking my my clear or my blank paper away so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to outline a couple of these feathers with the Bistra. Just so I can kind of see where I'm working. And make note that the tip of these feathers is cream, and we've already put that cream in there. So you can work around the cream. We do the same thing over on this side. Just plotting out where the feathers go. Now we're going to get onto the actual wing, and this is where it's going to get a little bit delicate because these feathers are all stacked up. So you can see I'm doing individual lines for each feather. I'm just drawing them out, and it's really just that simple. Just draw one line for each little overlapping feather, and then we'll come back and fill these in once we've got the form of them plotted down. Just so. That goes around the back. And then again here, I'm going to sharpen my pencil just a bit. We want to get it as sharp as we can, because this is very, very fine detail work that we're doing. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to, for each little feather that we're going across, we're going to draw a line. Just building it out. And a lot of these feathers have cream on the edge of them. So try and at least leave a little bit of space in between each feather if you can, because we've got to get some cream in there. But even if you can't leave a lot of space, it's fine. We're going to come back in with the slice tool and make space. Just like that. All right. Got just a little bit more to do. So this little area is white, so we're going to miss that out. And then this little area is also white, so we're going to go between there and just fill in our lines. And let them come up and meet where we came down. Like that. On there. Okay. So then we need our cream, or ivory rather. I don't want to keep calling it cream, it's ivory. And we're gonna follow those lines, and we're going to stick to the top of the line, and we want to line each one of those lines on the top of it with the ivory. So just go over them, and we're being gentle again. No hard pressure. Just getting a little bit of lightness in there, so when we go back in with our dark, it's easy to see that there's definition between the feathers. Another little trick that I like to do is I've got a sheet of black paper here. And this is just Arch's black watercolor paper. And I like to use this in the same way I use the white paper when I'm working on something that's got a lot of white in it, because it lets me see where I've already um, got that laid down. So now I'm going to take my nougat my 178. And I'm gonna go back in along these light lines, and I'm just gonna darken it up. Each of these little feathers to be distinct. Okay, that's coming along. And we're going to come up to these higher feathers and just shade them in with the same, with the nougat. Blend that in. There we go. Okay, so I've put my paper back under my little birdie here so we can get to work on these wings for serious. So I'm gonna pick up my uh hmm. Let's start with Beaster, which is number 179. And I'm actually going to start up here in the body. And I'm going to start bringing in some of those dark areas again. Just darken them up. And that's not quite dark enough. Let's grab our Payne's Gray and just see how that looks here. Yeah, I think that'll work. So with the Payne's Gray, let's start bringing in some of these darker spots on the fluffy upper body. And we're just dotting it here and there, just where we previously had put the, I think burnt sienna was what we had put there. We're just bringing those dark spots out, and be real careful when you're working around the yellow because it will go green. Just putting some little bits of darkness in there to show that he's fluffed up. Now I'm going to take the bistra and I'm going to go over that. Blend it in a little bit. Just like that. Give it a little bit of a cushion. Okay, that looks good. Wait one moment, because I did not put my reference picture back up, and I do need that. Really happy with how this little bird's coming out. He's very cute. He's going to be a good little practice piece for everyone. This Indian Yellow Tit is what he is. So from here, I think we're going to work on, we really need to fill the wing out, since we started on that previously. Come on, computer. There we go. All right, now I got my reference. So we're gonna, let's see, what do we have? Goodness, I want to use dark sepia, but I don't have that pulled out. Give me a hot second. I'm going to grab my dark sepia. That's the color I think really needs to be in this wing. Oh, maybe walnut brown. Or maybe that one. I'll set that aside just in case. Don't know if we'll use it, but I've just pulled out my walnut brown. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, let's go with walnut brown. That'll do, I think. I do believe that'll do. Okay, so from here, we're going to go in and do these darker. Oh, let me sharpen. Sorry. It's always something. Okay, now we're good. From here, we're going to go in and start filling in these spaces we've left open. And I'm just doing really light circular motions, getting that darkness in there. And this is walnut brown number 177 that I'm using. Just filling that in. We may find that we're losing the definition of these feathers, so we may need to come back in with a darker a darker color. So I'm just going to grab my black. And I'm going to, as I work, I'm going to define out each of these little feathers. And I'm not putting a lot of black in, just enough to kind of show, all right, this is the top of the feather. Just little tiny hints of that black in there to give it some separation. Just enough to, and I'm just not even doing strokes, I'm dotting it in almost. Now I'm going down to the next layer, and I'm going to go ahead and put the black in there as well. And when I say the next layer, I mean the next layer of feathers, the next step down of feathers. And this is where we've drawn the lines. So I'm very lightly taking the black along the line that we've drawn, with the knowledge that I'm going to have to also run the cream across that line. Or ivory, sorry. Always flip and mix it up. I'm just giving that a little bit of definition. Just a little tiny bit. Now, walnut brown. And I'm using circular motions with this walnut brown, and it's really sharp. And we're going all the way down to where the feather turns white on the tip, and we've already filled in that white with our ivory earlier. So just blend that down to where the white is. On each one of them. And on this next layer where the individual feathers are, I'm not particularly bothering to pull out each individual feather. I'm just putting the shadow in there under the higher layer of feather with this just small circular motions. Just very lightly getting that dark in there. Very lightly getting it in there. Now go ahead and pull that down. I'm gonna pull my paper out so I can see where I'm going here. That's a little bit helpful. I think how I'm going to handle the ivory in this is, well, I guess this one doesn't have ivory. This layer doesn't. So yeah, I'm just going to keep going with this walnut. Make sure you get into each little impression. Now we are working at quite a small size, so if you choose to do this bigger, you'll obviously be able to get a bit more detail in these wings. And if you do that, I would maybe do this part a little bit differently and not do circular motions. I would try and um, actually do the strokes the way the feathers are. But because they're so small here, um, we would just lose that detail anyway. So I don't think it's particularly worth trying to maintain that level of detail when we're working this small, because it's going to get lost anyway. But that's my 2 cents. So now I'm going up into the back where those little delicate feathers come down and just ticking out a little bit to show that the dark feathers do go up under that. And then the same really for the white on the bottom, that they're a little bit scruffy, I guess. I'm even taking the brown up into this yellow some, just because it's a nice shading color that will give us some of the definition we need. Alright, and on the front, we've missed some. Alright, that's coming along. Now we're going to come along the back side now and do these little feathers. And these is maybe a little more worth doing the direction of each little fluff of the feathers, since they're a little larger and more defined. So I'm starting from the middle of the vein of the feather and pushing out or pulling down, depending on which direction I'm wanting to go. Just fill it in, just like that. And let's see, gotta scoop my reference over a bit. Okay, yeah, that goes all the way down. So there's no white at all on these feathers here. There's one little band that goes across. And then we can take it down. Just slowly stroke it down. Fill it in really good. But we're not using a hard pressure, just like maybe a 2 on the scale. And then this area kind of swoops around in a triangular almost manner. Now we're losing some of our space for the cream here, but I'm going to show you guys how to get that back. I'm going to do another pass on these brown feathers, but actually I'm going to use, I really need to find my sepia. That's the color that is gonna make this. Oh, give me just a moment. Let me see if it's in my folder. Oh, burnt umber might do. Here we are, dark sepia. That's what we need. So I've got the dark sepia, which is 175. And now I'm going to go in and shade the tops of these feathers with the dark sepia. Brush this. Let me slide my line work hider back here so you can kind of see what we're working with. I just begin to fill that in. That feather comes around. This feather comes around. And I'm just doing very tiny little strokes in here. Just almost vibrating my pencil. course, that's cream there on the bottom. And then this little bit goes down. We've left maybe a little too big of a space for that cream, but that's fine. We can touch it up. Now I'm going to come back to this side and do the same thing with the sepia. Just darkening these little dark wing feathers up. And of course on this side you can kind of pull the definition out a little bit with the sepia and mark out the individual feathers. Just like that. Your number one goal is to not leave any gaps in the coloring. Like, see, like between that and that, there's this little tiny gap. We just want to make sure all those little spaces get filled in. Even if we don't have quite the right color, it visually is going to be so distracting to have that white gap in there. Just gently fill those little spots in with whatever color is adjacent to it, because that's going to help the eye make the picture seem more realistic when it all flows together. So now I'm going to grab my ivory and my beige red, which is the beige red is 132 and the ivory is 103. So I've got both of those. Let's see. We'll start with the ivory. I know I've already got some ivory down here. And I'm just going to real gently make sure we get that ivory put back into these little spots. And just small circular motions. Very small circular motions. Then I'm going to take the beige red, and I'm going to use that kind of almost as a shading color on this. So I'm coming down from the top of the feathers and just giving it just the slightest little bit of a shadow. And you almost can't even see that you've done anything with it, but that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and take the beige red while I've got it and come on down and pick out the individual lines that run down from these feathers on the mid part of the wing. And just give them a little bit of a little bit of definition before we go in with the ivory. Just like that. And we're just going to take the ivory with circular strokes and fill in. Okay. Now we're going to use our black paper to check that. Looking pretty darn good. Gonna go back again with the ivory and just fill in any of our little areas that we've missed. I'm gonna go over to this side first and just clean that up some. So what I'm doing is I'm taking and starting at the bottom of the feather and pulling that up so that it's going up into the dark. So it may not be specifically correct on each individual little feather, but it again gives you that visual idea that the cream or the ivory is running up the feathers. And you can even do that same trick on these more defined front feathers. Is just pull up on it, and it will give you that idea that the cream is going is at the tip, I guess is the best way to say it. But anyway, I'm going to take the beige red now, and we're going to separate out these little feathers. I'm just going to draw the lines through them. I'm not sure beige red is going to even show up enough on this bit. Let's use... what could we use? Really trying to limit myself with the amount of pencils we're using on this one, because all my other products have used like 20 pencils. So I've only got like 10 pulled out here to pick from. Let's use the Beastery number 179. And we're going to use that, and we're going to just go down through and draw the very light lines that run through this. Like that. Carry those lines all the way down. And you may find once you get down here at the bottom that it just becomes too much to try and do all of them. So if you could just get 2 or 3 little lines in this bottom bit, that's all that you really need to have to show that there are feather overlaps. All right, now we're going to take our sepia. We got to darken this right up. So now I'm going to go over that line again. Sorry I'm so quiet while I'm doing this. It's very, it requires a lot of my brain power to draw these little lines and get them straight. I have to concentrate very hard on it. But it's all right. You gotta do what you gotta do to get them right. There, I think that's looking pretty darn good. So then we want to go, I'm going to get my line work back. I can see where I've got to go next. Oh, I didn't go far enough. So this one goes all the way down here. And that's the back of the wing. And this one goes all the way back to about there. And these just taper out into it. All right, that has got just about all of our lines, I think, connected. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to shade out the darkest parts of these. And I'm just being very light-handed. And I'm going to be leaving out where the ivory needs to go. Just work your way down one layer at a time. This is certainly not the time to rush. Just take your time. So I'm skipping a blank section and I'm going down to the next blank section. I'm going to color that one in. Okay, then skip one, color one in. And so on and so forth. Skip one, color one in. That one didn't get to defined very well, but that's okay. Then skipping another one, coloring in. And then once we get here, there's quite a lot of light on this last little bit. So I'm only going to color in a small amount on the side. And then take it down onto where this has got this upside down triangle sort of marking. I just color that right in. And then he's got more white and then goes back into dark on the tip of the wing. And that's almost greenish, so I'm going to take my olive green yellowish, which is 173, and I'm going to really lightly make this tip feather green before I put my sepia down on it. Ooh, cat alert, cat alert. Sorry about that. That was little Kismet coming to visit. Okay, that's got that green in there. Definitely gives it a different sort of look. And then this darkness under the bottom actually also has that green in it. So I'm going to take the green and go under this bottom last feather. I'm just going to gently swirl that in there. Then go over it with the sepia. Put this back. Okay, that's looking good. Well, that olive green and the sepia are very nice together. Just a couple little lines there. All right, so let's just give this a little bit more attention. I need to clean up around these top feathers. There's no light there. So that goes all the way up. That goes all the way up. Okay. Now we just gotta sort out this bit here. Which is a lot of feather ends and how they come in. So I'm taking each one of our lines and just connecting it straight out to where it will connect to the feather on the other side. All right, it's looking pretty good. All right, so we're going to work on these little wings a little bit more. I think we're going to put this, our white sheet back in here so we lose our line work. And go from there. Let's tuck that in. And I'm going to pick out the indigo, our dark indigo, which is the Polychromos 157. And mine's really sharp, so make sure that yours is as well so you can get in here and get these details picked out. So I'm going to start, let's see, we're going to start just up here where these dark spots are. And again, we're just kind of tapping the paper more than stroking lines in. Just putting little dots of darkness in there. I'm going back down around these couple of white feathers here around the bottom of them. And just bringing that darkness down to give some separation between the feathers. You don't quite want to take it all the way down where the white is, but just touch that white a little bit. Or I guess ivory is the color we used. And then we're really going on the way the layer is it would be dark brown light, dark brown light. So you want to have your dark as the topmost part of the striping on the leaves, on the feathers here, and then leave a little bit of that brown, and then there'll be the light, and then again we'll go back in with the dark. And then leave a little bit, and then we'll leave a space for the light because we're going to go back in with our slice tool and pick out our highlights. And just work your way down this little area of the wing. And just put in that little bit of darkness for each little feather. And just work your way down. And it shouldn't take too long to get them all done. And then I'm going to take my walnut brown, and that's going to be the mid color. I can't quite remember what color we actually used, but we're going to use this walnut brown to blend this indigo out. And I'm just using little circular motions, and I'm pulling it down into the lighter part of the feather. And just really gently nudging that color down. And it's okay to do a little bit of this walnut brown down onto the white section of the feather, because that's going to help give that separation. You can kind of see what I'm doing here with it. A little bit all over the place, but and this one, and I'm not using hard pressure at all, just very lightly shading it in. And whenever it gets to this section here where the feathers are so tightly overlapping each other, you really just want to have a single line. And that's enough. Okay. Then I'm going to take the slice tool. And I'm going to go behind. I'm trying to keep the view clear so you can see exactly what I'm doing with it. But just really lightly scraping away the pigment at the highlight area of each feather. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so it's easier to see what I'm doing. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer on this. Fix the focus. There we go. That should be a little bit better. So I'm working on this little spread of feathers. I'm just scratching, very lightly scratching out the pigment. So that there's a highlight on each little feather that's going across. And we're going to come back with our ivory and fill this in. So try to just very lightly do it. Don't get heavy-handed. And it's okay if you need to change directions or however you're holding it to make sure you get that definition. You'll see me move my hand in a couple different directions to make sure I'm getting that channel open, I guess. That's the best way to word it. Okay. And I'm going to take my walnut again, actually, because I took a little too much off. And just scooch that back in there. Just like that. Now I'm going to take the ivory. And I'm just going to take the ivory completely over all of it in very deliberate strokes because I want to blend that brown in. And I'm going with the direction of the feather, so from top to bottom. I'm just using quite a heavy pressure, probably about a 5 on our 0 to 10 scale. I really wanted to make sure the pigment gets in any of the little grooves that are made from the slice tool. I'm just taking that all the way up this section of wing. So we're blending out that brown. And you can even go up into these little accent feathers and go ahead and get those blended down. All right, that's looking all right. So then I'm going to take my walnut again, my walnut brown, the 177, and we're going to go around the edge of the bottom of those feathers we just did. We're just going to do a very gentle outline around the bottom. And then we're going to do some circular motions and pull that shadow down. But just a little tiny bit. And this is back to very light pressure. And as I get near this triangular shape on the wing, I'm transitioning into doing straight strokes that I'm pushing along the length of the feather. All right, and I'm going to switch back to my ivory and just really get that ivory in this light highlight. And bring the walnut brown down a little bit more. We've already got our feathers defined, so all we have to do now is really color them in. go along the bottom edge and put the shadow in. And just like we did at the top, we're going to have a little section that's the base color, a section that's the shadow, and a section that's the highlight for each feather. And it's okay if it's a little messy because we can come back with this slice tool and clean it up. Now I'm jumping over to these feathers that are from the opposite wing now and just kind of giving them a little nudge, putting the vein in on each of them so that it's visually distinct in there. And then just very lightly shading around. And I'm going to pick my indigo back up. And still on those back feathers, I'm going to go ahead and just do some circular motions just to get a little bit of that blue in there. Because that'll contrast very nicely with all the yellow and orange we have already in this bird's feathers. It'll really help pull out that color. And then here we've got this strange little shape. Right? And then lastly, this little shape for this background wing. And I'm just filling it in very lightly, because that's all just kind of fuzzy background-ish. Texture. Okay. I think that's good for that. See, those feathers kind of are coming over the front. So we actually probably want to put just a dab more on that to outline them. Like that. So then all we have left for this wing is this little section right here. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to use the indigo, and I'm going to just pull it down, just like we did before. Just a little tiny bit from the top. And then leave the white space for the ivory, and then go to the next. It's all about just keeping the pattern up. Once you get, as long as you've got your good dark values and you keep your pattern, you know, true to the reference photo, it will look like it's supposed to look. We're going to move down to the next one. Okay. And then this last little dark band. Actually, while I have it in my hand, I'm going to take this indigo and I'm going to do a little bit of work on the head too, because I feel like it needs it. So I'm going to go up here behind this little orange spot and just bring a little bit of that in to give it some more depth. And just a couple little strokes here and there. And I'm not pressing super hard, just, you know, 4 or 5, somewhere around there. Kind of just put some definition in it. really pulling it down. And then around the eye, I'm going to leave the lightness around the bottom of the eye. And then here, right before that yellow marking starts, I'm going to put in some of the indigo. And then maybe up here on his forehead, I'm going to put a little bit. It doesn't really seem like it's changing much, but it really does. Yeah, I like the way that looks. All right, so I'm going to take away my clear paper. Or my white paper, rather. I don't know why I keep saying it's a clear paper. And I've shifted my line work a little bit here. Let me fix that. It's the downside to using washi tape is it doesn't adhere very well. And if you happen to have this issue, it's nothing to just take it off and line it back up. About right there. Okay. So I'm going to leave it zoomed in like this, and I'm just going to tilt the camera a little bit. I got a little cat fur here because my cat likes to get on my desk and get that fluff off of here. There we go. Better. So let's do his little leg now. And for that, we're going to need the ivory. And we're going to need... do I have a... Ooh, let's do sepia. And get your black. And I think those three will get us there. Maybe also pull over your burnt umber. Have that to hand. So that is 280 burnt umber. The black is 199, I believe. Dark sepia is 175, and ivory is 103. And I'm going to start with the ivory and just put that highlight on his little leg. And I'm just really blocking it in pretty good. And then I'm going to take this sepia and I'm going to do the little feathers here that come off on his heel. And I'm going to put a couple little fluffs that are coming off. Just very lightly put that in. And then I'm going to grab my black. And on the closest to the body area, I'm going to put just the tiniest bit of black in so that it's shaded. And then I'm going to grab that burnt umber and I'm going to blend the ivory and the browns and the blacks a little bit using a very light touch. Just really gently putting those together. And then from there, we're going to take our black and we're going to run down the back of the leg. Just like that. And then he's got like a little, gosh, I don't know what to call it, like a little vein in his leg. And we're going to pick that out with our black there. So that he's got some definition on his leg. And while we have our black, let's go ahead and do the shading on the bottom of the foot too. So we're going to come down here where his toe is going over the branch. And we're going to just take this black up and around and just darken just a little bit. And I'm just using very short, light strokes here. Just getting some dark on this. And we're going to put some other colors over it. But we just want to get that shadow in there. Okay. Then I'm going to take my dark sepia and very, very lightly, I'm going to just color this whole leg in with this. I'm going to come back in a second with our eraser and make highlights. So don't go too heavy-handed. And even get his little claw. Okay. So, actually, I think we're going to use our... Yeah, let's use our eraser. We're going to get our Tombow now, which you should have a Tombow. If you don't, you should. It's a stick eraser. One of these. And I don't have mine cut at an angle right now or anything. It's just as it is. And I'm going to shoot for erasing in this area. Right in there. And I'm only very, very lightly letting the eraser touch the paper. Like I'm not putting pressure on it. I'm literally just setting it on the paper and dragging it. And letting it take a little bit of pigment off. Like I'm not pushing at all. Just let it pull some of that pigment away. If you do not have a Tombow, you can do the same thing with a kneaded eraser. Here I've got my kneaded eraser. What I do when I need to use the kneaded eraser is I'll squish it into a long, skinny shape like that, and then just dab it. And that will get you the same effect. And just dab, 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 dab until it's pulled the pigment away. And you can see now mine is much lighter on the foot from doing that. And I really like using this technique in particular with drafting film because it's so easy to push and pull your pigment back and forth with a kneaded eraser or with the Tombow. And you can almost get like a granulated effect that you would see with like watercolor. And it's very hard to recreate that on watercolor paper or pastel mat, but you can do it so wonderfully on drafting film. Anyway, I'm getting my ivory now, and I'm just going to go over the whole leg again and just maybe like a 2 on the pressure. I'm doing small tight circles, just blending all of this together now. Especially getting in there where we've lifted the pigment. We want to blend that out now. When we get to the straight part of the leg, just push it all the way up there. Push it up and down the leg. All right, and that's little foot done. Let's do the other one. So we're going to start, this foot's much more in shadow. Actually, his whole underneath is in shadow. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our sepia first. Let's have a look at the reference. Yeah, we need to do the sepia first. And where we've kind of let this drift off, we're going to try and go up in these places where our pencil has already been and pick out the negative space almost from where we have previously marked. I'm just very gently, very lightly going in and giving the feathers that are already there some room to breathe. And then once I've got those outlined, I'm just going to fill this in all the way up to where the tail comes in. And again, very light pressure, just, one or two, just making little circles. There's not a lot of texture in our reference here that can be seen, other than the little bits of fluff that are coming down. Just fill that in. And then to do those little bits of fluff, all you have to do is just gently flick your pencil down. And they just magically sort of happen. All right, there we go. Now we're going to grab our black, and we're going to come up here in the darkest part of the shadow with our black and bring that in. And we're going to keep doing that flicking motion that we did to make these little tufts of fur, but we're going to do that with the black into the shadow so that it's making layers in the shadow, so there is still some definition in there. And once you've got that done, all we got to do is go across to the little foot, and his whole foot's in shadow, so we're just going to do the whole thing in black. And I'm not pressing very hard to get a good solid black here. I'm just doing tight circles. Just filling it in really gently. Just so. There we are. Now he's got some feet. Then I'm going to take the ivory, and he's got like this little bit of cream that comes out on his tail. And we want to try and preserve that. So we're going to come in here with the cream. I'm sorry, the ivory. I keep calling it cream. The ivory. And get these little feathers that are here at the base of the tail. I'm just going to block fill all that in. And then come down the tail with it. All the way to the end. And there are a couple little lines that are overlaid from the edges of the feathers. So I'm going to try my best to get those edges in, but they're very tight. So you might want to just put it in there and come back with our slice tool to get that fine detail. So if you don't feel like you can get that level of detail with just your pencil, that's okay. Just get it in there, and we'll come back and clean it up in a little bit. One last place to hit with our ivory while we have it is this little feather here on his tail. It has like a white outline around it. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that in while I've got the ivory at hand. Put a little tiny bit of white on, or ivory on it. Okay. From there, I think we shall get our burnt umber, which is a 280. And we're going to start pulling this tail down. Actually, no, burnt umber isn't quite the right color. We want walnut brown. Sorry, 177 walnut brown. No, that's not quite right either. Let's just ignore everything I've just said. I'm going to erase that. Don't listen to me. We're going to use the dark sepia. 175. That's the color we're using. That's the right color. Yes. And we're just going to pull that down. All the way down. And then there's a very dark spot right here. And I'm going to grab the black real quick and plop that dark spot in. And it's right along the vein of this top feather. Kind of a big, long, upside down triangle almost on top of that feather. And I'm going to put just a little bit of the black along the edge of it as well, so there's some definition. Okay. Now then we're going to go back in with our sepia, and we're just going to fill this feather in. And you can see I'm kind of doing it almost like patchy, because I want there to be a little bit of room for me to come back with the ivory and get a little bit of ivory showing through on this. But not to a crazy amount. I'm definitely doing more than one layer of the sepia on this. I'm going to go back and forth on it a couple of times. So we're just really gently laying that on there. Okay, and then we're gonna, while we've got it, we're gonna go ahead and go around this other little feather here. And this one is quite dark, so you can use slightly harder pressure if you like. And then again, we're going to come up from the bottom now on this right-hand side of the tail. And this is where we're going to start trying to do the lines. We're going to come up on this side first and just put that little bit of darkness in. And then we're going to give a little bit of room for the ivory to sit. And then we're going to come up again and then give it a little bit more room and then come up again. And just keep doing that until you get all the way to the base of that other feather. And then carry those lines all the way up. And there will be a point when they blend together, and that's okay. Like you can see what I've done here. I've only managed to really get 2 lines in before all my lines blended together, and that's just fine. And I'm kind of purposefully blending them a little bit more so that it's a little more matchy-matchy when I go back in with my slice tool, which now I'm doing. So get your slice tools, and let's get this picked out. So we're going to start from the top and just pull it down for each one. And you can see how much easier it is to get that clean line doing it like this. Easy. And then get your ivory, and we're just going to go from the top all the way down and blend that back together. Then I'm going to grab the sepia again, and I'm going to really lightly shade it back from under the wing. So we're putting pigment on, taking pigment away, putting pigment on, taking pigment away. Just push and pull, push and pull. Just like that. Let's put this under here and have a look at it. Not so bad. It's just, I've got the sepia again, and I'm just cleaning up the edge of this feather so that it's a little straighter. Cleaning up the edge of that inside feather too, so it's got a little bit more substance to it. Okay, grab the ivory. I'm just blocking in the ivory, and I'm going to take the ivory over this whole middle feather because we've left a little bit of room for the ivory to show through. I'm just going to lighten that feather up a lot, so we're going to need to go back over it again with the sepia once more. But we really want that ivory to pop on the tail. And then back to the sepia. And I'm being a little more selective with where I'm putting my marks now. And just kind of feel how yours is feeling and decide where you think it needs a little bit more darkness, where it needs a little bit more light, and go from there. I'm going to grab my black and put just a little bit of more darkness under this wing. Just like that. And then under this feather. And on this backside feather. All right, that looks pretty darn good. Now all we have left to do is the branch. So let's grab our green gold, and we need to keep our black. We need to get our bistre, olive green yellowish, the burnt umber, let's start with those colors, and maybe also the light yellow ochre. We'll start with that and then see where we go. So I've just got mine pulled out to the side here. I'm going to start with the yellow ochre, light yellow ochre. And I'm just going to fill in where I see the brightest highlights on that branch. And I'm just using light circular motions. Just kind of scratching it in. The fun part about drawing branches and wood and, you know, whatever the bird is perching on is usually people aren't looking so much at that. So you can be a little more abstract with your treatment of how you choose to illustrate the perch. So I always like to have a little bit of fun with how the branch looks. So I'm just blocking in little bits of the light yellow ochre. I didn't say the number, it's 183, yellow ochre 183. And I'm trying to keep this brightest yellow only to the top of the branch where the light's hitting it. And then I'm going to come back down here to where this little bird's leg is, and he's got a nice shadow being cast. So I'm going to mark that out. Kind of there. Very bright yellow on this branch here. Remember, we're drawing a curved object, so with your pencil strokes, you want them to kind of be in an arc. We're not just going straight back and forth, we're going at an arc to show that what we're drawing is rounded. All right, I'm going to switch to my green gold, which is 268. And I'm just going to enlarge these yellow spots. And again, still just doing that arc shape. Looking closely at my reference and just seeing where the little bits of green are. Or yellow, I guess, greenish yellow. Just plotting it in. Okay, now I'm going to grab the olive green yellowish 173. And I'm going to go in between these yellows and start putting some moss on this branch. And not a whole lot, just little bits here and there to show that it's weathered and it's okay if you do overlap the yellow a little bit, because this is very random, very natural. I'm taking the green all the way around the branch because we're going to shade up into it with a darker color. Okay, that's all going to be super dark. So then this will be green. Right, getting there. Okay, now I'm going to grab my dark sepia and I'm going to go ahead and start filling in that darkest, the shadow area where his leg is casting a shadow on the branch. And it wraps around under the branch. And here I'm using circular motions because you can't really see too much about what's going on in there. And we want to make sure we've got a good tight fill on our pigment. Got us lined back up in the view. So we're going to take our black and keep going. We want to fill in this shadow under the bird's leg, or under the bird's whole body, I guess. So I'm going round and round in a circle. Just really tight circles making this shadow. And fill it in really good because this is the darkest part of the image. We're not really using hard pressure so much as we're just doing very tight circles to show that we're, oh goodness, what am I saying? We're doing very tight circles to really fill in the tooth of the drafting film. We want there to be not much showing through. So just go around and around and around. And once we get up to this bird's little foot, we're gonna do a little bit of that trickery with the kneaded eraser. Just fill this in at whatever speed you feel comfortable doing. I'm going very slow because I want to get it very dark. So just take your time, do it however it feels comfortable to you, and make sure you miss out that yellow because we want to make sure that it's clear this is the shadow of the little bird's foot and his little body. People don't realize this takes so much time when you're just trying to block in a lot of one color. But just have patience. Don't rush it. No need to rush it. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to come back in here with a little bit of one of the greens we have and just put just the tiniest bit of green in, but I don't even know if we'll be able to tell. But it feels like it needs it. So once I get close to his foot, I'm going to start easing up a little bit on my pressure and on how tightly I'm making my circles, because I want there to be some differentiation between his foot and the shadow, and his foot's already so dark. I'm just going to leave like a little highlight. And that's where I'm going to put that green. And then I'm going to go ahead and carry that on up to his tail. And something that helps while you're doing this is to keep turning your pencil every now and then, so you're always working on the sharpest point of your pencil. That will help you get a much richer black. You always want to be working with the sharpest pencil you possibly can. Dull pencils will not get you a very good fill. Always very important to sharpen your pencils as often as you need to. And I know, especially when you're just starting out with colored pencil, it can be very hard to get your brain around sharpening and losing so much of your pencil. But at the end of the day, it really is worth it to just sacrifice that little tiny bit of pencil to get that sharpness. Your work will look so much more phenomenal. Um, you will notice a difference. All right, so we've got that just about blocked in. So I'm going to grab my olive green yellowish, and I'm going to come in on the back side of this underneath, and I'm just going to fill in that area where I had gone a little bit lighter. Just give it a little bit of a hint of green. Just like that. Okay. And now we're going to take the same olive green yellowish. It's 173, I didn't say, but there we are. And I'm going to use this same color for the shadow going up the bottom of the branch. So let's keep it with those same really tight circles. I'm just going to run it all the way up the bottom of this branch. And it's okay to overlap a little bit with the yellow that we've already used. Um, that's enough. And we're going to go down here to the bottom as well and just take it down. Just like that. All right. Let's get this last little bit in the green, and then we're going to switch to a brown. And actually, I'm going to put just a tiny bit of this green on this side of the foot. Because as I'm looking at it, it looks a little odd. There we go. And just blend it on out really gently. Blend, blend, blend. Okay. Then to finish this branch off, I think we're going to use Easter. No, I don't think that's quite dark enough. I think we're going to go with the nougat. So start up here at the top and start just filling in any of your little gaps. And it's okay to overlap. And just fill in with your, this is the 178 nougat. And really blending these colors together to get this branch. And we'll come back with one more pass of the yellow before we finish. Nice and gently blend it in. Blend it, blend it. You can go lighter in some places and darker in some places. You really want to have that variation of color because we're only really using 3 pencils on this branch. 4, I guess, if you count the black. We're just doing what we can to differentiate. And we're making a round object here. This is not a flat object, so try and keep that in mind with the direction your strokes are going. Has a little bit more sun on it down here. Okay. Now let's get our light yellow ochre. And we're going to finish this branch off with the light yellow ochre. We're just going to go in here and blend the whole branch out using the yellow ochre, which is the 183. And I'm being not too particular with where I'm putting it at this point. I'm just getting it in there. It will blend. All right, and then come up here to this side. There we are. Now I'm going to take my white paper and put it under and see what our, without the line work, what it looks like. Actually, pop this under there too for extra cushion. All right, I think he's looking pretty cute. I'm going to take my dark indigo now, 157, and I'm just going to go along the bottom of the branch and just put in a little bit of shadow here and there, just giving it a little bit more form. And because we've used mostly yellow colors, this dark indigo will come up green, so don't be too heavy-handed with it. But we just want to give a little bit of extra shadow bump on this. Just enough. You could even come up into the branch some and put some texture to make it look like there's moss on the branch. Just squiggle it in. When you're drawing moss, there's not really a rhyme or a reason to it. You can really just make it up almost as you go. All right. Let me put the dark behind it and see if we've missed any light spots. I don't think we have. I think we're looking pretty good there. I'm gonna grab the Ivory 103 and just run it back over some of these spots. Especially get the white of his eye really light. Pull these lights of his tail in. Definitely had a couple little spots here I've missed. But that's okay. That's why we check. Yeah, you can definitely see where I've missed some spots. Here we go. That little bit. I'm going to take my slice tool, and where this little bit of his tail is coming out here, I'm going to flick some little extra feathers out just to give it some more texture. I'm going to do the same thing here on his leg, where this light goes into the dark. And then I'm going to take the ivory and go back over it. Grab my green gold and really go over the front a little bit, just so it's a little bit brighter where the light's hitting him here. That needs a little bit more treatment. We can put some of that green gold into his back as well. And I'm just really lightly putting it in there. No, no serious pressure, just enough to get a little bit of that pigment in there so that he's got a little bit more color to him. There we go. Well, I think that just about does it. He looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to get my pencil and sign it. And I think we'll wrap this up. Put a couple little, I always say that and then find other little spaces that I want to put more marks on. Yeah, he's good. All right, well, cool. Thank you so much for drawing this bird with me. I hope you had a good time, and don't forget to like and hit the bell and all that if you enjoyed yourself, and I appreciate you coming. See you next time.